Right, well, that was a quick flash around the studio because I'm in the studio trying to do some work on a Saturday. And I thought while I'm here I will do some numbers because I was taking my prints, which you'll see there, and I was thinking, well, which ones am I going to take to a gallery? Because I thought this year I would probably try and do some stuff with a gallery and then try sell my artwork in a gallery, because I haven't done a great job myself of selling my art. And I thought, well, maybe a gallery will do a better job. But then I kind of just did the numbers and it made me sort of wince slightly. So I thought we'd go through the numbers. It's not a pretty sight. This is not one of them videos that you're going to go, wow, I'm so excited to be an artist. You're going to say, damn, I wish I never watched that. Anyway, here it goes. So imagine that you are an artist and you've had these prints made up at a professional framers, and you take them into a gallery and you put them on sale, and they're £1,000 for 3, like a triptych type thing. And somebody walks in off the street and they look at those and they think, wow, you know, that's great, he's doing all right, he's got £1,000 for those 3 prints. But the downside is it's not all as it seems. So let me break down the price. So £1,000 is what you pay over to the shop. So what they do is they take 50% of that and they keep it, and they give 50% to the artist. But first of all, we'll deal with the shops or the galleries, 50%. So you usually have to pay VAT. So that's 20% of the full sale price that they have to give to the HMRC. So then they've got rents and rates on the high street, which is not a cheap place to be. And obviously we know the high street is dying and therefore it's a harder place. But they promote you, they do email campaigns for you, they've got a website, etc. So there's quite a bit of cost to them. And then they've got to take some home to be able to pay their own mortgage and for the upkeep of their own house and their own family. So there's a bit of that cost that has to go to them, but it's not a lot. So the 500 that went to the artist, to me, so what do I get out of that? I get to go on holiday with it. Well, no, unfortunately I don't, because I'm working with the gallery. They really want me to work with a professional framer because they want to sell a high quality item, especially if it's £1,000. They don't want to sell it in Amazon frames. So they make me take it to a professional framer who frames it for me and then gives me a bill. Now we're saying that this was £118 because that's what it was. £118, and then we take that £118, we times it by 3 because there's 3 of them, so that's £354 to the framing company, which then leaves me with £146, which is not a lot of money after all. So the framers, obviously they've got to cut the wood, so they've got to buy wood in, glass in, the frame, the mount board, etc. All the little fixings that are on the back there, they cut this exactly to the right size. They've got hardboard in there, which they put in. You know, it's all you know, it's all cost of materials, and they've got labour, and they've got a rents and rates of their own premises, and the one that I used was on the high street, one of them. So you know, they've got that same cost out, and so they only end up taking a little bit home as well. And then the artist, like me in this case, I get £146. So what do I do with my 146? Well, it turns out that 146 basically has to cover the cost of my rent and rates for this studio. It's got to cover the cost of materials, the ink, the paper, and because I'm doing a screen print, obviously making the screen prints as well. So I've got to have screens, I've got to have the emulsion, and then I'm left with the time. So we'll come to time. But let's just say that we take my rent and rates and cost of my materials, inks, paper, board, etc., whatever it is, we'll take that as £46 of the 146, just so it makes the maths easy. That leaves me with £100, we're going to call it profit. I'm not even going to talk about tax, actual personal tax. So £100. Now, if I was to take an hour to make a screen print, because, you know, it does take quite some time. I mean, ultimately, I am just dragging a squeegee with ink on over a screen, but I have had to make the screen, which does take some time. I have to wash everything up after every go. So there is a lot of time involved in making screens. Now, if I was going fast, mass producing, I could probably bring the time per print down. But then all of my stuff is kind of unique and individual. Everything I do is like a one-off, even if it's in a big series, is a one-off. So let's just say, I'm going to say an hour per screen print. So that's 3 hours to get screen prints out. Except for the fact that that one at the top there was an hour to get the screen print done. But then I chose to add embellishment to it, and I put lots of little dots and lines and icons and stuff in it, which took me another 7 hours. Now, I didn't watch it on YouTube and TV, but I spent another 7 hours. So that's, in total, we're going to say 10 hours for £100. That's £10 an hour, which is less than minimum wage. So is art worth doing? It's not, if you think about it from a monetary point of view. Now, let's flip the way that we look at it, and we think of it more as a hobby. So imagine if I was playing tennis for 10 hours and someone gave me £100 for playing tennis for those hours, then I think you'll probably be happy, right? Let's pick any hobby, snooker, golf. Someone pays you to do the thing that you want to do, you're happy. That's a good thing. So art has to be seen like that, I think. And I'm coming to this from the point of view that I have actually run a business for 20 odd years, 20 years this year for my limited company, but I was doing it before that anyway. So 20 odd years. I understand, commercial stuff, especially as a creative. I've been selling my creativity for all, these years really. But for me, I think what I've realized is that art isn't commercial. It's not going to net you a big income. Even when you put in a lot of money, even when you charge a lot of money for the thing, it ends up not being as much as you really think it is. So I think the best way to think about art is that it's a hobby. And if you spent some time making pieces of art and you spent a load of time, and let's say you created a stack so big that you couldn't do anything else with it, you had to get rid of it. And so you've got two options. One is put it in the bin. You've had the enjoyment out of it in the moment, and now you're getting rid of it just because you need to tidy up. The other option is obviously you could take it to a framer's and you could put it in a frame, and then you could sell it, and you could come back with 10% of the actual end value, and that 10% allows you to buy some more materials to be able to do your hobby for longer. Then I think obviously that's the best way to look at it. If you want to think of it as a business where you're going to end up having a Lambo, well, there's only one person I know that in this industry that has a Lambo from art. For most of us, it's literally just washing its face. Now, as Mr. Dogtooth, that's my sort of pseudonym, my alter ego, Mr. Dogtooth seems to be doing really cool stuff. But the reality is the time and effort that I put into the art is not returned financially. It is covering itself. I get to do really cool experiences with really cool people and really cool brands, but I'm not making money from that. I'm not covering anything. The last 2 years of my life being an artist, trying to do it as a living, really have been the toughest financial years of my life. I've run a business, as I said, for 20 years. I came out of, probably in 2022, maybe, the best financial year of my life ever in my business, to quite a tough spot. So we went from the great income and having a team and everything getting done, and I had time and space to do my art. That was the sweet spot. That was the perfect spot. If I could have held on to that, if I could have seen it, that would have been bang on, because I could do my art and there was something else happening that sort of funded it. Now I've got to go basically back to the process, because chasing the dream of being an artist was absolutely brilliant creatively for the last 2 years. Like getting up every day and doing whatever you want to do creatively, is great. It's pretty awesome. But there's not many of us who can get to do that, because I don't have investments. I don't have, great big pots of cash anywhere. I burnt through whatever I had, And then, now I need to get back to work because I couldn't make enough money from my art to be able to pay enough of a wage. It literally just covers the costs. And how do you get it to be more money? Well, there's a couple of ways of doing it. One is volume. So you cheapen your materials, you do digital prints versus screen prints maybe, you do, although to be fair, I think, probably digital prints are more expensive, actually in the one-off, but in the total in terms of time, etc. Obviously, you outsource that, the time part of it. Your framing, maybe you could do that yourself, but I don't want to do it. I've done the mount board, I've done the glass, I've done parts of that process. It's just too much faff. It takes a lot of time. I don't want to do that. I could do bigger. I could do big pieces like this. Big pieces like this obviously make more money because they feel bigger. They feel like there's more substantial, and you could charge more money for it. But this is like time. Oh, this is time. These are lots of time in these drawings. It's very difficult to get people to pay the money that you've put into them if you don't do the promotion, if you don't do the brand promotion, if you're doing YouTube videos and Instagram. If you don't want to do that, use a gallery. Put the money. You get your 10% out for you to do your hobby, but just use a gallery. For me, I don't think that a gallery really has any benefit for me financially. I think it's only going to be about profile. So I'm going to try and put these into a gallery, and I'm just going to see it as advertising, essentially. Put them in galleries, see if people like what I do, test and measure. I'm not investing any more money into it in terms of if I have to do it all myself. Of course, I'll capture that £500, less the VAT, obviously. If I capture that £500 that the gallery were taking, but then I'm going to have to do the email list. I'm going to have to build my own website. I'm going to have to do all of the promotion that's around it. I've got to do the videos, etc. So you've got to think about that in the whole. It's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to do the art, or do you want to do the promotion part of it? And then ultimately, looking at it as a business, can it make you money? In my experience, no. I think it's probably best to have something else and treat it as a hobby that can make money. Can it make a living? I think that might be quite tricky. But I know that there are artists out there that do it, but I think the majority of artists we're probably never going to make a living from the art. We'll just make a living from, or it'll just cover itself basically. So it's a bit of a depressing video, this really, but I think it's a reality check for me, at least, that to see that actually the art game is not as cool and lucrative as you think and I thought it was. It's a hard game where an artist walks away with about 10% of what you see on the ticket. Anyway, if that taught you anything, great. If it didn't, goodbye.